You know, every show has that one character who never tries to steal the spotlight, but somehow ends up being the glue that holds everything together. In The Mentalist, that's Kimball Cho. He's not flashy, he's not eccentric like Jane, and he's definitely not as openly warm as Lisbon or Rigsby. But the more you watch, the more you realize Cho is the quiet center of gravity on this team. And the deeper you dig into his story, the more you see just how layered, disciplined, and unexpectedly emotional he really is. Today I want to break down his character, his psychology, his role on the team, and why Cho might just be the most underrated character in the entire series. From the very first season, Cho establishes himself as the guy you can't shake. He's calm, measured, and always delivers his lines with this deadpan rhythm that somehow makes him the funniest guy in the room without ever trying. Watching him sit in interrogations is like watching someone sculpt, precise, patient, and completely focused on the small details others miss. And that's why he works so well as a counterbalance to Jane's chaos. Jane floats around with intuition and theatrics, while Cho stands firmly on the ground, reminding us and the team that rules and structure matter. But what's so interesting is that he's not robotic. That dry sense of humor slips through at the perfect moment, like a pressure valve releasing tension. It makes him human. Even when we know next to nothing about his personal life early on, Cho's presence gives you this sense of safety. Like, no matter how far Jane pushes the envelope, Cho will be there to keep the floor from collapsing. That balance and discipline shaped by experience paired with this quiet loyalty is exactly why he became such an anchor on the show. Blood in, blood out changes the way you see Cho forever. Up until that point, he's the stone-faced interrogator, the guy who barely flinches at anything. But then we learn about his past. The Avon Park playboy stealing his first car at 14, the nickname Iceman, because if you needed something done cold, Cho was the one to do it. Suddenly, his stoicism isn't just a personality trait, it's a survival mechanism. He's a man who's already lived chaos, who's seen what happens when you let impulses run your life, and so now he holds on to control like it's oxygen. What hits hardest is how that past bleeds into his present. When David Seung, a childhood friend, is killed after reaching out to Cho for help, you watch him break just a little. He doesn't show it openly, but the guilt, the anger, the violence against the gang members, it's all right there under the surface. And then you see the flip side, his tenderness with David's grandmother. The regret in his voice when he admits he ignored those calls. That's when you realize Cho's icy exterior isn't emotional absence, it's discipline born from pain. The army refined it, the CBI relies on it, but the roots go back to a kid who chose order after burning through too much disorder. Iceman stopped being a gang moniker and became a code. Never let the cold destroy you, but use it to keep steady when the world around you falls apart. Cho's interrogations are some of the most satisfying moments in The Mentalist. He never raises his voice, never puffs up his chest, never tries to dominate the room with theatrics. Instead, he sits there with that calm, unshakable presence and lets the silence do the heavy lifting. Most suspects can't handle it. They start talking just to fill the void, and Cho seizes on the cracks. It's a style that feels more military than police procedural. Deliberate, patient, almost surgical. He doesn't corner people, he allows them to corner themselves. And when he does speak, it's always precise. One fact, one contradiction, then silence again. That's why he's so effective. He doesn't play mind games, he just builds a logical cage and waits for people to realize they've walked straight into it. What I love is that even outside the interrogation room, the same restraint shows up. When Rigsby drags him into lying to protect his dad, Cho's anger feels massive, precisely because it's rare. This is a guy who values honesty as his anchor, and breaking it hits him harder than it would anyone else. Yet he forgives, because loyalty still matters. Watching Cho interrogate is like watching the opposite of Jane's style. No manipulation, no charm, just the quiet art of restraint. And in its own way, it's just as hypnotic. The relationship between Cho and Jane is one of the most underrated dynamics in the series. Cho doesn't idolize Jane or get caught up in his theatrics, he just measures him. Where Lisbon often wrestles with Jane's antics and Rigsby plays the wide-eyed believer, Cho stands in the middle, quietly auditing whether Jane's gambit is worth the risk. He may not always understand Jane's methods, but he respects the results. And more importantly, he trusts Jane's heart, even if he rarely says it out loud. There's this subtle affection too. When Jane returns after Red John, Cho refuses the hug, but you can see the micro smile that shows how much he missed him. Jane sees Cho more clearly than most, like the Mexican jumping beans gift in Black Helicopters wasn't just playful. It was recognition of the kid inside Cho who still remembers joy. And yet Cho remains oblivious to Jane and Lisbon's romance until the very end, because he keeps work and emotion in separate boxes. That balance is what makes their bond special. No theater, no grand speeches, just two men who know the other will always show up when it counts. Cho's friendship with Rigsby is the heartbeat of his lighter side. They're complete opposites. Rigsby wears his emotions on his sleeve while Cho guards his behind stone walls. but somehow it clicks. When Bosco's team nicknames them Bert and Ernie, Cho doesn't even mind. He actually leans into it, joking that Ernie's the clever, handsome one. That's Cho in a nutshell. Dry humor slipped in so quietly you almost miss it. Their banter feels effortless, whether it's betting on Jane's tricks or ribbing Rigsby about his love life. But what makes their bond meaningful is how it holds up under strain. In Bloodsport, when Rigsby uses Cho in a lie to cover for his father, Cho's fury is real. He's built his career on never lying to another cop, and being dragged into one cuts deep. Yet when it matters, he still has Rigsby's back, and eventually forgives him. That balance, principle first, but loyalty wins, always defines Cho as a friend. With Grace, he's more of a quiet observer. He spots the tension between her and Rigsby, and later, he's the one nudging Rigsby to move forward, to not waste his chance. And when the two finally marry, Cho is there. Solid as ever, a witness to their growth. He's not the loud cheerleader, but the steady friend, the one who doesn't need to say, "I'm here for you," because you already know he is. Season 4 finally lets us see Cho crack, and it's brutal in the best way. After injuring his back on a case, he slips into painkillers, and for someone built entirely on discipline, that loss of control is devastating. He oversleeps a stakeout, nearly gets Rigsby shot, and you can feel how much it eats at him. Then comes Summer Edgecombe, and suddenly Cho is pulled into unfamiliar territory. Messy, unpredictable romance. She's reckless, flirtatious, and drawn to his steadiness, while he's trying to keep everything boxed and under control. Their relationship is a spark that feels doomed, but it's also one of the few times we see Cho admit vulnerability. That elevator kiss, when he finally tells her he likes her, is unforgettable precisely because it's so rare for him to say what he feels. But Summer pushes limits, and Cho's line is always responsibility. When her drug use and risky choices spiral, he can't protect her anymore. Their breakup is raw. He tells her to leave, to start over, and you can see it hurts him as much as it does her. Later, in Season 5, their bittersweet reunion shows growth. She's clean, marrying someone else, and he risks his own standing to help her one last time. It's not just a love story. It's a test. Cho learns that caring doesn't mean losing himself, and sometimes loving someone means letting them go. After the Red John era ends, Cho's path shifts, and for the first time, he steps into a true leadership role. Joining the FBI under Abbott, he becomes the steady anchor in a new environment filled with different personalities. His bond with Wiley shows his subtle warmth. He teases him, guides him, but never patronizes. With Lisbon, he finally admits she was the reason he stayed at CBI, giving her credit for shaping his career. But it's his mentorship of Michelle Vega that really defines this chapter of his arc. At first, he's cold and critical when she lies to him, because honesty is everything to Cho. Yet slowly, he opens up, training her, pushing her, and even showing glimpses of pride. That makes her death hit like a freight train. Watching Cho hold her as she bleeds out, then seeing him cry in private while making the call to her family, it's one of the rare times his armor completely breaks. His grief even bleeds into his work, making him more aggressive and reckless in the aftermath. But eventually, he steadies himself and channels it into growth. By Season 7, he's promoted to Supervisory Special Agent, finally, the leader others look up to. The kid once called Iceman ends the series as the man in charge, carrying both discipline and compassion in equal measure. Kimball Cho is one of those characters who sneaks up on you. He's never the loudest in the room, never the one demanding attention, but he becomes unforgettable because of the consistency he brings. Through gang scars, military discipline, CBI chaos, and FBI bureaucracy, Cho never abandons his core values: honesty, loyalty, and responsibility. He proves that stoicism isn't about being emotionless, it's about holding the line when emotions could cloud judgment. And yet, when he does break, those moments carry even more weight. Scenes with David Seung's grandmother, or quietly mourning Michelle Vega. Cho reminds us that strength isn't loud, and real leadership doesn't need to announce itself. His humor is dry, his demeanor is calm, but beneath it all is a man who's fought hard to become reliable in a world full of uncertainty. In a show where flash and chaos often take center stage, Cho embodies the quiet heroism of showing up every single day and doing the job right. So that's Kimball Cho, the Iceman who turned his past into discipline, his silence into strength, and his restraint into one of the most compelling character arcs in The Mentalist. He may not be the face of the series, but he's its backbone. No wonder he is the fan favorite right after Jane. So yeah, guys, this was my overview of Cho's character. Hope you liked it. Tell me which character or episode you want me to dissect next, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.